Hey, Nerdpreneurs! Today's episode is a talking nerdy, and I gotta say, I'm not sure how I feel about putting it out. You know, you ever had one of those days where you're just maybe a little too tired or you struggled to kind of get through it? Well, we recorded after one of those days for me. And I think this conversation is a little more raw, a little more vulnerable. I think it gives you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of what it's like to be an entrepreneur. And it's not always good days. It's not always easy. I wasn't sure about releasing this episode, but I think Frank handles this conversation exceptionally well. And I don't want to hide anything from our listeners. I want them to know how much we actually want this. Both of us are pretty hungry for this podcast to go somewhere, and we really believe in Nerdpreneur. So, we're going to release it anyway. What follows is a slightly edited conversation between Frank and I that's really about how much and how hungry we are for success. Hope you enjoy.
Talking nerdy. We just talking nerdy. With all this talking nerdy. Oh, come on, you wanna talk nerdy?
And I just found out that I sound like Frank's mom, and that's a weird thing. To find out about a co-host.
Yeah, when you start saying you should record everything I say because everything I say is straight up brilliance. Yes,
That's not what I said. That's
that
not
is
all what I
word
said.
for word.
No, everything.
Now that we're recording, I would like the record to show.
Well, no, my okay, okay, I didn't say everything I say is brilliant. That's like arrogant as fuck. No, what I said was you should be recording everything I say because I fart brilliance.
Oh, fart brilliant. I don't
Which is
okay,
way
right.
funnier than that. I didn't want to go the full Ricky Bobby and say, well, you know, whatever, I piss excellence. So, but it is something I think we should do. We should record. But yeah, what I'm beginning to realize as I hear from other people who are considered pros in the podcast market is that I know a lot of shit. I know a lot about this shit.
Who were you talking to?
There are people who run podcasting companies for people, and they're like production companies for digital marketers. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. So, but when I basically it sounds to me like you could pretty much create any generic podcast you wanted out of these companies, but none of them have any soul or care in the same way that I think about it. And trying to explain that to some of the people in my team that like just aren't into podcasting, and it's like I like this guy because he's got passion, and I don't like this person because they clearly don't give a shit. They have different priorities. So it's like it's hard for them sometimes to understand in my mind that I am brilliant, and just trying to make you feel at home. I'm just trying to make you feel at home. That's it.
I really wanted to let you just like bask in your own glory for a moment, but I couldn't. I just couldn't let you just have the moment. I'm sorry, but also I'm apologizing to someone who's terribly arrogant. That's okay.
No, I'm literally just trying to make you laugh. But the other side of it was I don't know. I just got like after all these meetings today, I just got really down. I was like, I don't want to
yeah. Meetings are soul sucking.
I just know that I can be, I don't know, like I just feel like I'm as good or better than most of the people I meet in places like this. And yet I feel like I'm wasting away in mediocrity and obscurity sometimes. And it's a very difficult thing when you know you have potential to be so much more and you're not.
Let me try saying it the way that I think, that I am interpreting, which is given the amount of hunger and energy and dedication and passion that Chris has for success, there feels like there should be nothing that's holding you back.
there isn't anything holding me back. And I have all that stuff, yes. But there's another thing you're leaving out is I actually have the skills.
Mm-hmm.
I actually am good enough to be top tier,
Mm-hmm.
which
What
is
does
which is
let's
not what I'm saying
mhm.
is that I it gets frustrating when you know you're really good at things, but nobody else seems to either notice or give a shit. But you need to get along with people who aren't on your level, and they don't
Oh
listen to
yeah.
you based on the fact that because you don't have a podcast that has 1.5 million people that have downloaded over 300 episodes because somebody had a fucking list. You know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah.
you're building something from scratch, even though your quality might be better, even though the stuff you've learned is overall more engaging, even though you have the capabilities to be as good or probably better than most of the people who are talking to me, um, they don't, you just don't have the authority to be able to bring people along that ride to the belief system that you have about yourself.
I hear you, man, and I get it. I mean, there's a lot of things that you're saying that I think I really understand because I also was an actor, and like no one gets it. No one knows me for my potential. No one knows how good of an actor I am. And no one's going to put me in their project, it seems. Like I remember that was a thing, that was a feeling. And did you feel that way when you were an actor?
No, I wasn't that. I mean, no.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I
I
did. Okay, then I did.
like I had doubts, but yes, I also had lots of confidence that like if they put me in, they would be making the right choice. And I
Yeah,
also
sure.
I hate auditions because auditions are not really conducive to finding even the best people. It's a foolish process to begin with. I actually wanted to be a director. I never wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a director because
Mm.
acting's like I want to be a hammer. Like no, I want to be the architect. It made no sense to me. So
Yeah. After
I
being on this side of making videos now, yeah, I very
I
much agree.
so I basically did acting in order to learn how to direct, and I had aptitude for it because I had aptitude for a lot of things. But yes, and it was fun sometimes. But the last thing I would want to do is act something I hated, you know what I'm saying? Or
Sure.
like do something I didn't want to do. So the idea of like being a desperate actor, scraping for a job and trying to basically do anything I possibly could, like I could have done that. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to go and I still could go and get jobs if I wanted to. I could go and work in acting. I could probably do that shit. I just don't want to do anything that comes along. I like the idea of owning a theater one day, and I like the idea of running my own shows, and I like the idea of having I would actually like to do acting courses, classes, and teach other actors and direct them. I'd like to put up plays that I get to coach people on, and once in a while, I would step into a role and play something for fun. But I really don't have much of a drive to be like I want to be an actor, you know?
I think that there's a few things that I wanted to respond to. One of which is like you in general, you just summarized my impression of Chris real good, which is Chris wants to run his show. Chris wants
Hmm.
to run his show. And I think that that speaks into so many aspects of your life. If that isn't one of your like core tenets, values, or mantras, thinking of Star Trek Adventures and that value system, like if that isn't one of your core tenets, like I feel like it should be, man, because
Hmm.
you definitely do. Doing this podcast with you, like you are so into this because you are so gung ho about like having a show that you have like a huge say in. And I think that's important that you definitely have that outlet. And this ties back to what we were talking about with those other people. Now I kind of want to play devil's advocate because every great conversation has to have somebody playing the other side. And the way I see it is that these other people get to call the shots like they do. They get to sit in their, ivory tower because they have done something that allows them to have this momentum, this capital, this inertia already built up. Maybe like you said, they just bought a list of emails, or maybe they just fell into a pool of money, or maybe they actually worked their asses off and those 300 episodes that they made are actually really good and that the people that download it actually really like it. I mean, like, who I don't know them. Who's to say which one it is for them? But there is something that is either unfairly gained on their end or hard won.
I just think if I had 1.5 million downloads, I'd have made a lot more money.
Than they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things I love about you is that you are so good at looking for the sale. You're so good at looking for the sale and what is it going to take this person to convert? And I don't think that way, but I can recognize it. I think the
Oh, I
way
know
of
you don't.
yeah, I think the way of what am I going to do to make this machine run as efficiently as possible? How am I going to build this machine? And along the way, how am I going to make friends? That's where my mind goes. So that's one of the reasons I feel like you and I complement each other so well.
Yeah, it's good somebody here is making friends.
Yes. I gotta be that one.
No,
Happy to be that one.
it's a good thing. I mean, no, I like the idea of having connections and everything like that, and I like friends.
Of course.
I think I meet great people, whatever. But in the end, it's like
Don't get me wrong. That is not the end all of you. That was just some stuff.
No,
that I said.
I just really want to be in a place where I have. There's a lot of analogies that have been used in my life, and one of them is like a three-legged stool, you know? Life is kind of like a three-legged stool. And so a lot of people have, you know, three legs that they prop their life up on, right? And it's like, you know, family and work and, you know, something else, maybe a hobby or some other thing that they do, you know, that gives them meaning, I guess. And so maybe that's meaning. And I just think that it's way harder to fall down if you have like a six-legged stool. You know what I'm saying? So why not have like 6 different legs of things that you can be able to do? Because maybe my base is wider. So I think about it like that, and I'm like, well, you know, that work thing is one thing I do, and a lot of times that's like 100% of what people get in terms of money, and it's 100% of what they get in terms of their, you know, meaning even sometimes. And so
Right.
for me, I'm like, I want meaning from a lot of different things. I only want to do things that are actually meaningful. And then, so the problem is when work isn't really meaningful, but it pays the bills, it's like, okay, well, where's that? So I want to find that way where there's like a lot of money coming in so that from something meaningful and having more legs that actually prop you up. So you're harder to take out, you know, you're just harder to take out. And you know, it opens up possibilities for a lot of other things. You know, like I'm doing great, but it would be bad if I had a kid. It would be bad if I had to do a lot of other things. I would be in a state of poverty, just like a bunch of other people. So it's sort of, you know, I live in this delusion that I'm successful for who I am, but I have less than what other people have to deal with. So it's a delusion. And so the same thing always happens where I'm like, okay, when you really look at it seriously, how do you turn this thing that's creating meaning into something that's also creating income and providing value? And I think there's something there, and I really believe that there's actually really so much that comes out of my mouth and yours that's really good and helpful for people, but just not enough people freaking listen, or not enough people give a shit to do it. Like I know about 30 people in my own personal life who should probably listen to me, but don't. Okay, like that they come to me for advice sometimes. Like they walk around like and talk to me consistently like I could fix their life or help them. Like I get asked for advice all the time. And I'm like, I put this shit out on a podcast. Like I just, you know, I only have limited time and I'm focused on my stuff. You want my advice? Go listen to it. Like I have things, and I just think there is that. I mean, we have 35 some odd downloads. We got 3 people signing up. That's an incredible ratio. We need a 500 people listening, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like, how do we get there? And then I don't know, I'm just getting exhausted with like, I don't know, part of me is like, crush it here. And all I'll do every day is run content and just make stuff and like get more people to listen and like move the needle. But it's just, that's so scary sometimes.
So scary. It's such a fucking good point. I mean, I think that since we just ran into this, I was like, what is the point of this conversation going to be? And I actually think I found it At least in my mind, you may think it's different. And then I want to continue what we're talking about. But it is, are you hungry? Like, kind of, do you have the hunger? Do you have, not Chris. I know Chris has it. I know I have it. And a lot of nerdpreneurs have it. A lot of nerdpreneurs have it. And it is that, do you have that hunger to go out there? And are you so hungry that it hurts? And I feel that it does for you and I. And I'm not just talking about this podcast. You and I have done our own projects in the past, and we've got our own other things that we're doing. But so hungry that it's just like, God damn, I make good stuff, but it doesn't get seen. And in one way we could say, oh, that's the algorithm helping us, because there's also some shit among our gold. And it's the algorithm blessing us by not letting that shit see the daylight. But also it's like, God damn it, algorithm, why are you helping me when I drop gold? Like, I remember thinking that specifically about the YouTube channel I did called Random Rolls, about it was Ghost of Salt Marsh, and the last of the 6 episodes was fucking great. Like, I learned what needed to be done, and I executed really well for that level of ability at the time, and tools. And nobody saw it, because of course it's like a YouTube series. By the time you get to the end of it, you're down to a 20th of your viewers if you're lucky. And it's that kind of pain that's just like, God damn it, I work so hard. God damn it, I want it so bad. And here we are. Like, I mean, our podcast is still young, but it's a year old.
We had a good first year for
We
what we did. There's a lot more that can be coming, and we're actually at our best month in downloads this month, which is cool. Next month will be even bigger. But it's a grind, and it's a consistent thing, and moving the needle there's a lot of burnout that comes from social media. And like, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, if all I did was just that, it really would be just a full-time job. But part of me is like, it would be a good for a full-time job for me, but it's just like, how do you make money? Because social media doesn't pay you anything. It just gets you attention, and attention is valuable, but you have to turn that attention into something, and that's where the offers and the sales and the providing value and all that other stuff comes in.
Yeah, I mean, how do you end up managing your own burnout, dude?
Well, I went out for a run briefly today, light run, because my back was all tweaked, but it's better now. So better
Nice.
enough that I could actually run.
Oh, right, yeah.
But I do things like that in order to try and give myself a different state. So it's managing a state. I know that I'm not crap. I'm just in a crappy state. So I have the wisdom, at least, to not like identify myself as this thing that is harmful, but it's more finding ways to force yourself into situations that change your state. So, things that we know are good for us, but we don't want to do, like, I don't really want to work out, but I'm going to go work out is an easiest one. I don't really want to eat a salad, but I'm going to eat a salad, that kind of stuff. And then other times you've got to give yourself some conscious break. So, like, you work a lot on something, try and finish as much as you can, or maybe you do finish it, and then you give yourself a conscious break where you're like, reward, I can take time to play this video game for a while, or I can, I go out with my friends, I see concerts, a lot of stuff has just been boring lately, so it's harder. What's interesting to me is the work and the things that I do. I'm trying to bring that perfect alignment into my life where I'm like, this is what I do, and I love every minute of what I'm doing. And a lot of times I do. It doesn't mean it's always easy, but I love a lot of what I do. I just hate that I'm not getting paid a lot of money for it right now.
Your day job or this?
Oh, what I do for my day job, I do not love. I am good at it, and I am able to love it. It doesn't mean I'm in love with it.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, without getting into the details of how much you make or I make, I feel like Chris, money is a powerful motivator, but ultimately it is not the motivator. For Chris, it is Chris's freedom and power to choose.
Freedom is generally the highest value, yes. However, money is one of those things that it's not the most important thing in the world, but it is very important. And if you don't have any, it becomes exponentially more important. So there is a point, and this has been studied, and I'm not quoting the study, but I am quoting a study. $75,000 American is the area where people are just like happy. They don't need necessarily a lot more. And if they make less than that, they're worried about money. So it's kind of one of those things like if you're at that level, then you would be considered abundant enough that you start to be able to self actualize. And I think that if you're in that position where you're making more than $75,000 American, say a year, right? You can be in a place where it's easier for you to focus on these other things because money is not a problem. If I didn't have my job, I would only be worried about making money for this podcast. Do you understand? Right. Like the focus would be different and elevated, but it is focused on it, but also it's just not at the level it could be because the time that I'm putting into it is the time I'm putting into it, which is not insignificant. It's just more would be focused and more targeted, and there are things that might be different in terms of intensity. So
absolutely.
I would also give myself a deadline of like how long I would give it until and what I needed to be at in order to be okay.
Milestones and runways.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to double my income this year.
I know. Yeah, you said that. I remember when we talked about our New Year's resolutions.
Still can happen.
And just goals. Even though you and I aren't big on New Year's resolutions as a trend, the idea of goals is still there.
Double my income.
Yeah. I mean,
but for what?
That's a great question, actually. For what? Because you were saying, you said something, that's what it was. You were talking about other people who like, you were saying, these other people want to hire someone to do a podcast. These other people who have hobbies, they don't get that, like, on my time, I am doing a podcast, But what you said was these other people who have hobbies and families and are enjoying their lives. And I wanted to laugh because, like, the idea of what you're implying is that you're not enjoying your life. And I know that's not true, but
no,
I want you to elaborate a bit.
No, I just think that their focus is on that. Like, I don't really try to pursue what's making me happy. I try to pursue what is meaningful. And I think that that's actually why I wind up being happier than a lot of people overall, for a lot of reasons, because people see that in me or something. But it's just the ability to do these things and execute on them and get myself to do the hard things. And I can do that. And it sometimes just gets exhausting.
Yeah.
So I might just be tired, but I'm also like, it should be easier,
You're totally echoing how I feel. Like, I am under the weather. Like, I have a weird bug. It's not terrible, but like today is the worst of it. But it's a stress bug because, as I told you, off of recording, I had a really big gig recently where I filmed a ad all by myself, hired the actors, got the location, managed everything. I did so many people's jobs, and I did it, and I did it well. But now my body is calling its tax, It is demanding what it is owed. And it has really made me reflect on this idea of what you just said, which is I feel like I have been working so hard lately, and I feel like I am tired, and I feel like the fruit that would normally be here for this kind of work is not here.
Hmm. Do you think you get stressed though because you just don't know how to handle stress?
No, I'm quite good at handling my stress. I mean, sometimes that doesn't mean I don't show it. Of course, I show stress. It has a physical and external display
How do you know you're good at handling stress?
because I know the signs of it and I know the ways to work with it and to cope with it. Now, that doesn't mean that let me say it instead of in a double negative, let me say it this way. I know that when I'm stressed, I can be short with people. I know that I will just block people out because I'm focusing on stuff that I'm stressed about. I'm working on it. And I know how, when my stress gets to a certain level, I know how to take care of myself. Um, but I also know that it's a journey. This whole managing and navigating my stress is not something that is just, oh, I am a master. It is always going to be evolving. So I think I'm good at managing my stress. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very good at it. I question most people are. I don't think most people are.
No,
I
no,
also
absolutely
think
not.
I actually think the real problem though is not in that people aren't very good at managing their stress. I think people are um, stressed about things that they shouldn't need to be stressed about. And they actually cause stress when there's no need to cause stress. That's actually the real problem. And
Well, in that case,
that's why I
I am
question
guilty.
well, that's why I question when people say like, "Oh, I'm good at handling stress." I'm like, "Well, you probably are because you probably create way too much of it."
Yes.
It's like I'm really good at lifting weights. Yeah, because you do it all day.
Yeah.
Like I'm really good at like procrastinating. Yeah, because you do it all day. It's like if you
Or
do it a
yeah.
lot, you're good at it. I just
My
think
f-
that
my
there's so many
favorite
things
is
you shouldn't be stressed about.
I'm really good at crunching and getting work done at the last minute. I'm like, "Oh, probably because you procrastinate and that's what you do."
Hmm.
I'm not. I'm not good at doing the work in the last minute because I like to plan doing the work over time steadily.
Like I have like I'm doing a talk for a company that for a guy who used to work for me, and he wants someone who's an expert on like generating referrals to come and talk to his team about generating referrals. And I'm like, I don't really want to do this. So I said, I'll do it if you pay me. So he's gonna pay me. I'm like, all right, fine. I guess he's gonna pay me. So I guess I'd do it now. But I didn't really want to do it in the first place.
Mhm.
But I also know I shouldn't say no to things that come my way just because it's a new thing and it's a way to actually make freelance money. And the idea of like prepping a talk and putting it together and doing something for someone could wind up being really valuable for this other route I could go and make more money and do consulting and all that kind of stuff. And so maybe I should just do it. However, it's nice that people come to me asking me for stuff. But I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, I need you to pay me for my time. I'm really fucking done not getting money for my time. I give a lot of people advice for free.
Yeah.
Good advice for free.
Yeah, I definitely think that we're at that point in our careers, our lives where asking or being able to say no is now an option. Being able to say no to opportunities and requests is an option. In the beginning it wasn't, and it certainly didn't feel that way. But now it's also you can say no or you can say yes
Mhm.
and I think the idea of
Well,
yes and then saying what it is that you actually need.
well, the stress thing is also like, oh, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. And the answer is no, you don't. You get to do this. You get to. That's how I always handle a lot of things is like get to have this opportunity to do this thing, which most people, there's somebody out there who would love. Like I have a coach who was not very good, but I paid him for a few years. I got what I needed from him, but he wasn't actually that good a coach in a lot of ways. And he doesn't have a very big coaching practice, his struggle
But
with
he was
money, all
good
sort
at
of
that
things.
time.
No, he was just good for me.
Okay.
I knew what I needed. I knew I was comfortable paying him for the things I needed. It's not about the coach, but what I'm saying is he would be dreaming about someone asking him to come and speak somewhere and pay him money. He would be dreaming about that. Like, that's what he wants, but he can't get there because he just clearly doesn't actually have certain things for it. I am getting approached by people who are saying, like, hey, do you want to do this for me? Because they know I can deliver, which is great that I have that reputation or whatever it has happened, so that I've been able to do that. And I fostered a lot of relationships in my life working in my old sales job. So I have a lot of connections, and the likelihood of that happening for me is higher just because I met so many people. So yeah, statistically it was going to happen. There's still a challenge every time I look at it to be, remember, you get to. This is an important thing and a distinction that I need to make in order for me to be like, yes, this is gratitude. I can actually do this. I get to do this. I don't have to do this. It's something I want. I think it's something I actually am excited about. And there's times in my life where I'm like, wouldn't that be cool? And now it's actually happening. And now, because I'm like just tired, I can easily turn myself into a where I am living on that have to.
Can you elaborate on that have to?
Well, just like you say, like the idea of like deadlines, right? Like, I got this is due Wednesday. I have to work on this tonight. Well, it doesn't make it easy. So instead, when you focus on that, this is an opportunity that you get to, right? And if you actually have opportunity to do this, this is a positive thing. Be grateful for the opportunities that are coming to you. Then you get more of them. Then you actually changes your perspective on it. And that also changes the level of stress. That's all I'm saying from a perspective of what generates stress is often the obligation of it. And when you shift that mindset to be like, no, I get to. I'm just relating to your story about being the filmmaker of sorts, doing all these jobs. I had to do all these jobs to be able to get it done because of my obligation to the company and the expectation they had of me. Well, also, though, you get to do all these things because they had supreme confidence that you would be able to get it done. And you did. So there's a perspective change that I think eliminates, or not, maybe not eliminates, but greatly reduces the overall stress that you wind up perceiving in a situation. And I have to just be reminded of that in my life.
That you are capable and that you are like,
No, that I get to instead. It's just like, it's again, it's a matter of shifting from, life is happening to me. No, it happening for me.
yes.
Okay. Like, it's a perspective change. Those
Yeah, I get
perspective
it.
change might be gimmicky. Some people say they're gimmicky. I say they are effective.
Yeah.
They actually work. I don't care if they're real or true. Some people like, oh, what's true? Who gives a shit what's true? What matters is the effectiveness of it. And if I change my perspective, I get the thing done, and I get it done well with less stress.
Yeah, I agree. Not a lot of people find the value in mindset. And I think I mean, like, actually, one of our guests, Only Crits, Eric, talked about getting stress behind you. And he elaborated, thankfully, because I thought he meant like get beyond stress. Don't let stress be a burden. But he was saying get stress behind you as a force of momentum, of thrust. Like, use it, recognize that it is a positive force of momentum. Mindset is the next level. Like, you can have good tools, you can have good people, you can have good work ethic. But if you can have the mindset, you can turn any situation into an opportunity.
Yeah. You'll suffer less.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Gosh. Yes. I won't name names of, just in case someone knows who I'm talking about, but I know a guy who just can't help but complain about his job. He just nonstop just finds the fault with the employer, finds the fault with the government, with the world. And sure, he recognizes that there are good people, but he is so much more readily willing to complain. And I get that there are things out there that are wrong that need to be changed, but you're not going to change them just by complaining.
Yeah. And complaining rarely gives any sort of, I mean, there is, I think, a valve towards stress that needs to be released.
Yes.
So I can understand a limited complaining period where you're, say, venting towards somebody
Yeah.
over a frustration. I
Yeah.
understand that. However, when it is a personality trait or someone identifies as someone who's like, that's how they get connection with people is by complaining about things and finding ways in which to commiserate, that's toxic. And I find that very challenging to deal with. So.
It's taxing. It's taxing on everybody else, especially if the other people are like putting the energy in to have that positive mindset, to have that, or maybe not positive, but to have a mindset that helps propel them. Like that negative, and I'm not saying all negative emotions and thoughts are bad. I think they have a place and time, like you were saying, venting and other examples. But I think that it just makes it even harder on everybody else because everybody else is like, look, we get it. We know we are trying to not let that bring us down like a tarry swamp. We're trying not to be sucked into the quicksand.
Well, all complainers ever do is alleviate responsibility because they can't handle it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like I said, venting once in a while to relieve frustration, different than someone who has a perpetual level of identity wrapped up in complaining. That tells me they don't have responsibility as a core principle in their life around, like, I'm actually responsible for everything around me and my own life. So,
Yeah.
if everything's wrong or something's going on, and I'm complaining about it a lot, well, whose life is it? And my question often that I would have with and this comes from, and I learned this from doing a lot of sales and specifically managing sales representatives who are new. And the first thing every sales rep ever does when they go through their first week is they come into the office and they bitch and complain about how things are going and how it's not going the way they want it to go. And we have to shut that down, eliminate that kind of talk as like, that's not an acceptable way to be in my office. So, because that's not an acceptable way to be, we force people to shift their perspectives when they're in the office so that it becomes more positive. And, again, the mindset becomes empowering versus not. But a lot of people love to come in and be like, oh, this customer was blah, 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 blah. And there's no way. And no, so many people are not giving referrals and this program isn't working and this product isn't running the way it works. And the economy is so bad and taxes are so high and shipping costs are ridiculous. And they can come up with every excuse in the book that'll stop them from taking any action towards their goals. And so I would turn it around on people all the time. And it's like, people say, oh, I don't have enough money. And it's like, who's sending your paycheck? It's not me. It's your phone calls every day that you're working. It's how often are you picking up the phone. It's how much effort you're actually putting in. At the end of the day, you haven't done enough to deserve the pay you want. That's why you're earning what you are. And if you're responsible, you'll turn that around. Let's talk about how to do it because I actually believe in you. You just don't believe in you. And I would talk to people like that.
Do you think that you ever heard of toxic positivity?
Absolutely. I used to embed that in people, but it
Do
was
you think that that's what you were promoting?
no, no. I think I was actually promoting a lot of responsibility because most people don't have responsibility in their lives, especially young people, the ones that I met, especially the ones that are willing to come in and do a knife selling job. Usually they're pretty desperate and they're in desperate circumstances. As much as they want to blame everybody around them, nothing will change in their life unless they stop that mentality and decide to do something about it. And so I've had people that were in that situation and absolutely had real reasons. And reasons are what we call our good excuses, by the way. We call them reasons. Oh, yeah, I have a reason why I had it so much harder and worse. And I'm saying, yeah, absolutely. You probably did. But I'm here to tell you, I don't really give a shit. I'm here to actually get you out of that situation. And if you listen to me, you absolutely will. And you see that guy over there who had everything? You could be beating him because he actually doesn't have this skill either. He's just as idiotic as you are about responsibility, but he's a lot harder to teach because nothing goes bad for that kid. You're actually willing to learn, and you know what? If you learn this one skill, you'll be able to surpass every rich kid in here who had it all given to them.
But what's that one skill, Chris? I gotta know.
It's the ability to be responsible for everything in your results. Like, take responsibility for more than just yourself. Take responsibility for your results. Take responsibility for how you act, how you are. Take responsibility for the customer saying yes or no. You know, as soon as you alleviate responsibility on all those situations, saying like, well, I couldn't have done it. 20% of people you have no influence over. That's it. 80% of people able to be influenced. If you don't believe, you have to take responsibility for that. Otherwise, what's the point of doing sales? What's the point of being here? If everything is just chance and random, there's no reason to be in this job.
So let's take this. I want to take this as devil's advocate again, and I want to take this a step farther here. How would say, you know, you're talking to me, and I'm like, man, like these people, like they're just not buying. They're just making some bullshit excuse. You know, it's the money, or you know, they just can't make a decision right now. And then you're saying something along the lines of, well, it's not. It is your responsibility to get them to change their mind?
No. Here's what I want to ask you, because you're just putting a lot of shit in there to make yourself feel good. When you say people, how many people do you see?
Okay, so role playing here. It's these two customers that I'm working on.
Two?
Like two of them. And they are so close. They are so close.
Should I get you a sweat towel?
These are my hot leads. These are my hot leads, Chris. Come on.
Your ass off last week with two,
I did.
Didn't you?
Out of 25 calls, I got these two hot leads, and they are gonna convert, but they are just taking forever, man. It's not my fault.
Well, it's not anyone's fault, and fault doesn't give you any agency over it. The good news is there are things you can do to impact the results. Now, if you're interested in having a conversation on how you can actually impact results, I'm interested in having that conversation. But if you're interested in venting, I can sit here and listen until you're ready to get into the mindset that's going to change your life.
But I need to get them to, they're just not going to do it, man. This sucks. This whole world sucks.
That's perfect. And you know what? If I had the results you had, I'd probably be thinking about quitting at this point. But here's what I would say, all right? I know this because I did it myself. And do you think that if those people that you're saying, okay, like, they're not going to buy, you might be right. Do you think every sales rep sells every single person every single time? Of course not. But the biggest problem is you're a fish in a very small bowl right now. And you're actually kind of a big fish. You're like a big fish in a very small bowl. So the problem I think you have right now is that you are needing to get out of that small little bowl and get to a big bowl. The small bowl you're in is 2 customers. You know, 2 customers is never, ever a good amount. There's no such thing as a business based on 2 customers. Okay?
Shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, unless you're a butler, you're pretty much, there's no business, okay? Like, there's only one. So if you want to know what it takes to be successful, let's take a look at someone who got the results you were looking for. How many appointments or how many people do you think they have in their pipeline at one time? And this is where the responsibility starts to shift, because what's going to happen is, as I go through the numbers do not lie. If they're not getting the numbers, if they're not getting the results, it's because they did not do enough appointments, or they are not doing what I taught them. There's only 2 ways that you can fail at this job. One of them is you don't work. The other is you don't listen to me. The reason I'm telling you this, Frank, is because I take responsibility for your results. I actually trained you. So if you're not doing well and you want to quit, it's actually my fault. And I apologize. I probably didn't stress the training enough that you need to do these things, or I didn't make it clear enough what actually gets results. But now that we're actually going to dig in, and I'm glad we're having this conversation now, I'm going to fix this. Are you willing to work with me on this?
I guess so.
All right. Look, here's what we're going to do. Let's sit down and figure out how much you want to actually make. Why don't we start with that? And then I'm going to work out how that's going to look in your schedule. Then we're going to figure out how you can make that happen this week. And if you create those results this week and you get that X paycheck, how are you going to feel? Probably a lot better.
Gonna feel great.
Well, look, I know that sounds like bullshit. All right. Here's what I would say. If I wrote you a check for $1,000 for next week, and I handed it to you because of the work you did, Would you have any problem with this job?
No.
So we know that's possible. We know it can happen. It's happening. You've seen it here, you've seen it here, you've seen it here, you've seen it here. Are they special? No. Success leaves clues. Success is 80% science. And science is repeatable, it's studyable, it's replicatable, and it's something that you can learn. So we're going to work on the science aspect of it. I already know you got the art side of it because you got a personality. That stuff, why do you think we hired you?
Man, I'm getting serious like Glenn Gary boss vibes. So one thing is what I wanted to like come back to in the middle.
You're bringing out my sales manager. This
This is hilarious because this is so you just pulled out those old loafers in your closet that you haven't worn and you just stepped right back into those shoes, man.
it's not that hard.
It really isn't for you. But I wanted to ask specifically, you were making it sounded like you had sales tactics that you were like preaching and teaching to the people that worked with you.
Yeah, well, sales is all tactical, yeah.
Yeah, but like specifically, like, so in my sales job, there wasn't like my bosses were never saying, "Hey, Frank, there's these three tricks you got to follow to succeed and sell." Like they didn't do that. And I'm kind of wondering, one of these days we'll have to get your sales presentation on here, by the way. But I really am wondering, like, what is it for you that's, let me see. How did it feel like there was a lot of pressure for you to make these folks succeed if you were providing them the building blocks, air quotes?
Well, yeah, because if they didn't make sales, I made no money.
Okay, got it. You sure this wasn't a pyramid scheme?
Mm-hmm. This is not a pyramid scheme. But it was a step above a pyramid scheme. So it was legal, and it wasn't a pyramid scheme. It was direct sales, and it was recruiting sales. So we weren't necessarily like pyramiding or MLMing because it wasn't an MLM. We were a direct-to-consumer marketing company, which is very challenging. In fact, if you could do what I do, you would become one of the best salespeople in the world, which is what I am. But not many people really realize how good you have to be successful. And by the way, all the other people who are better than me are in the company. So there are lots of people who crushed me in sales, okay? And there's lots of people who are really, really even better than me. I'm not saying I'm one of the best in the world. I'm just saying comparatively to the 98% of the people who quit this job, and I lasted 13 years, I am in that percentage point of people who are top tier in this type of marketing. So realize that there's a level of understanding and a level of commitment around these types of conversations that is different. And it's not tricks. You don't win by tricking people. Sales is about value.
So, but I just have to say, it's kind of hard sitting on the other side of this and hearing you talk about it. And I get the feeling that listeners would feel similarly because you have such confidence. It's not even confidence, it is certainty in yourself and your ability. And it's hard to listen to it because I feel like not many people have that. And it makes them uncomfortable because everyone is told to, in one way or another, that they should be able to recognize that there is always someone better than them. There's always someone out there. Like, we're not told that explicitly, but we have this voice in our head that often says, so-and-so is more deserving. So-and-so is better than me. So-and-so just happens to be in the right place at the right time. Or we have other negative self-talk that is more negative directed at us about how we are not good enough.
What am I so certain about that's bothering you?
It's not specifically any one thing. It's just that
all I'm certain about, Frank, is that you could be successful. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it's not. Okay.
All right. It sounds like that's what's making you uncomfortable.
No, it's not, Chris. It is specifically that Chris is just so certain in his ability and that he is one of the best. And I'm not trying to take you down from where you are. I'm not. I'm not, because I admire this. I admire this like confidence, this certainty in yourself. Sure, I'm a little jealous. I wish I had that level, sure. But I think it is a little uncomfortable for someone to hear that so and so is just so damn good.
I understand what you're saying. There's a delicate line between, say, confidence and arrogance, and many people do feel uncomfortable around people who are said confident, right? A sense of certainty about self. I want to explain where that comes from, though, because I think with an understanding, it makes it easier.
Yeah.
The difference is that they didn't go through what I went through. Why do certain people, when you hear them speak about their experiences on something like a Joe Rogan podcast, right? About growing up with toxic family members and, awful people around them. And like, some people were beaten or violent or whatever. And somehow along the way, they found a way in which to emotionally become better and give back to them, to other people, or give back to the community or whatever. They become someone who now is on the Joe Rogan podcast. They've had success. They've got to that point, right? Why do we listen to them? Because we know from their story that they've gone through a lot of things that we didn't go through. So there's a sense of authority that comes from, say, their emotional intelligence or their supposed wisdom. Would anything that a guru says matter if they hadn't done any of the things they'd actually said? So the difference is, I'm not coming from a place of like, oh, I'm the manager who just like got hired as a manager and never sold anything. Like, I sold over $130,000 of product personally while I was going to school. And I did it every summer, tens of thousands of dollars in homes, calling people on the phone. I have had more people hang up on me. I've had more no-shows. I've had more people not kick me out of their house, because I never really got kicked out of their house, but I've had more no sales. I've had people reject me for asking for referrals. I've had people hang up. I've had people come into my office and call me a scam artist. I've had people yell at me for being something that I'm not, and I've had to keep my cool. I've been, aggressively targeted as somebody who like is predatory recruiting students, to sell this scammy product. And, people on school campuses come up and accuse me of being a bad person, and things like that. Like, people think that like, oh yeah, you just know all this because you think you know all this. It's like, confidence doesn't come from confidence. Confidence comes from earning it. People with this level of certainty do not get it without earning it. And that's why you listen to people sometimes, is the feeling behind it. The way I describe conviction is, and by the way, I've also been broke completely because I was terrible at the job for a while. Like, I went through bankruptcy. I had tremendous financial difficulties for many years of my life before emerging from that successfully. I almost got kicked out of my personal rent when I was 21 years old. I almost got kicked out of my office rent my office that I was paying, because I had, $500 a month I was paying there. I had $1,700 I was paying in office rent, and I was behind on both of them multiple months. I almost got kicked out of both. And by sheer grace of people around me who gave to me and helped me out, and also by sheer luck in some ways of people coming in and me also going out and working my ass off to sell, along with all those things, somehow I wound up making it through to be in a place that I actually succeeded and lasted for another 13 years in that company. So it's just like, when people say like, how can you be so certain? It's like, because you didn't do any of the shit I did. I know what it takes. And people will say to me like, oh, it's so hard. It's so like, and it's like, I know it's not easy. I had to go home on my first night, make calls, call a bunch of friends and family, very uncomfortable, get through it, get in the door. I had to show up. I had to bring the rope. I had to bring the leather. I had to cut the penny. I had to read the manual. I had to memorize the clothes. I had to ask for referrals. I had to go through no's and rejections, drop down through every set. I had to write all the prices down. I had to learn it the hard way many, 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 many times. And you know what? I got through it and I figured out through failure, through sucking at it, through being bad at it, how to be good. And you can't really replace that level of learning. And when you do that, then people tell you, like, well, you can't do this. I'm like, you're just not at the place where you know you can yet.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah, I especially like that last thing you said there. When people say it can't be done, just not at the place where you know you can.
A lot of people are not there, and I know because I've been there too. And sometimes it is hard, and I say these things like, "Oh, I'm the best in the world," sometimes just to try and get a reaction or try and sometimes make people laugh, because arrogance seemed to be my humor. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it makes people like me less. So
Yeah.
I run those risks, but I've tried being the fake nice guy too, and it doesn't work for me in terms of personality either. Because the thing is, I got to be genuine, I got to be honest, and that's how I influence people. How you influence people, completely different than how I do. And so you would have a very different sales. You would have a sales message and certain tactics that would align, but you would also have a level of a way of being that would be a different sales tactic, right? It's like comedy. There's thousands of ways to be funny. You don't have to all be Louis C.K. We don't all have to be Sarah Silverman. We don't all have to be Tiffany Haddish. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can all be different people. And they're all hilarious. They're all funny, but they all have their own ways of being funny.
Yeah, everyone's got their own voice, tone
Yeah.
to what they do.
But
Yeah,
they all
absolutely.
understand jokes too. And there's a science to jokes. And there's a science to how to make people laugh when you're on stage and read the room and all those things. And that's the skill sets that they might know they're funny because they have this thing, but they don't know how to do the science part of it. So they get up on stage and learn it, and they learn it, and they learn it, and they learn it. That's how sales works. And if I've just, I just did it through for 13 years in a hardest industry, one of the hardest industries you could do, and I found a way to be successful and survive and thrive and go from the bottom all the way to the top. And it's just not something, and most people never do it.
So I'm about to say something you probably won't want to hear. And it's going to circle back to what this conversation pretty much started in, which is about podcasting. From you were talking about your sales experience, and one of the things that came out of that does also circle back to the beginning of our conversation is around the amount of effort and time that goes into getting good at not just something, but also building something. So it's not just the skills that you get, but it's also the product and the brand that you create. And I think this is a really nice lesson for anyone listening and for us, sure. I'm not saying you need to hear this, Chris. I'm just saying. And it is that, the building takes time, the momentum takes time, that inertia that I was talking about a while ago. And I think, that is something that us nerdpreneurs often need to just have a little reminder on. And I definitely need it. I mean, God, for my own day job, I'm doing so much entrepreneurial stuff that it's important for me to remember that, okay, momentum takes time. And as long as I'm working on it, actually, there was a quote of the day episode I was listening to today about how if you just do a little bit to move the needle, then that's not a new concept, but it's a great reminder. Just even if it's say you've got your day job and it takes all your time, but you've also got your personal side project or whatever it is you're working on. If you can do one thing a day to move the needle, no matter how big it is, you will be working on it every day in some capacity, and you will make that progress over time. And I know that that is something that you and I believe, and I know that that is something that it's so powerful to help people get to that point, to get out of this point of why am I not there yet? Why am I not at so and so else's level yet?
And I think what you're really hitting on is the value of patience.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, there is a lot. I learned a lot of patience in my other job as a consequence of not being very good at things and also people being frustrating. The real patience is when you are training or coaching people they don't always change overnight. They let you down, they screw up, they make mistakes, then they get better, and then they regress again, and then they get worse, and then they get better again, and then it's like this give and take back and forth until finally after like 6 months you have someone who's actually able to do or replicate what you're able to do in a company. And it's like, oh, this investment into this person has finally taken hold, and now I can delegate with confidence to this person that it's all going to work out and it's going to go great. That's an example, but it could also be just like, sleeping in, or like being late for things, or not, taking anything seriously, or like, I had a guy who used to sleep with all our receptionists, like it was just like there was problems like that. I'm like, you can't keep doing that. Like, you have to stop doing that, right? Otherwise you're screwing so many things in our office, which not in a good way.
Right.
So there was a lot of things like that you wind up learning over time. It just takes time, and my level of patience is surprisingly high for doing it. And I also realized too that if you're able to hang on a little bit longer than most people, you wind up being in an elite category of people compared to a lot of people too. Like if you hang on a little longer, like, a lot of these podcasts that are out there that people say, oh, there's like 7 billion podcasts or whatever it is, for one for every person in the world. Well, here's the thing. Yes, but most of them have quit already. There's not that many active podcasts. And if you last longer than a lot of the people, because most podcasts, get a year, maybe 2 years?
Maybe.
And then they quit because they're not going anywhere. They're not getting progress, or they never got any more than a few listeners. I see us, we're growing. We're increasing our numbers every month. We have better and better content, bigger and bigger guests, more and more ability to monetize, and more value being provided. We are learning and growing as we go through the process. So that is what I call momentum. Momentum is a recognition of results consistently made over and over and over and over again. And it keeps on going until you get to the point where you're past where everyone else has fallen, and you have hung on and kept going. And that's also a function of patience. Because many people just get impatient with the fact that wow, I've put so much effort into this and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, so much of it comes down to also our relationship, the way that we work together. I mean, so much of this has also been just that we didn't know each other very well in the beginning. So we've had this fun of getting to know each other as we do this. But it is, like you said, it's that patience. It's that patience, that determination, that grip, of hanging on. And one of the things that I think is special to working with other people is you have the ability to bounce off of each other. You can support, you can listen, you can vent, you can divide and conquer. And that's something that is invaluable when you can have a team. And I mean, we've heard that from so many of our guests, how important it is to surround yourself with the right people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also, we heard it from Devin most recently on the StartPlaying.games episode, and how he didn't want to do another business without a partner. And I related to that very hard, because there has been a number of, I just related from the podcast perspective. There's been a number of projects that I've done on my own. But also like the idea of having like a partner that gets it versus like 5 people who are just like relying on you to do everything. It's sort of like, well, this is Chris's thing. He could and he's good at it. So let's just, we'll show up for like the very bare minimum of what we do, and then we'll see. But it's like, if I had 5 people who were all as committed as I was to the podcast I was doing before, which was an actual play, that podcast would have gone somewhere. Like, it really would have. Like, we had great numbers for our first year. We had great engagement. We built a very solid following from only one platform, and the content was great. It was an emerging market at the right time. Like, I called so many things ahead of the game, and I'm just like, but I didn't have the right people.
Yeah.
And the right people, they just didn't see it. They just didn't get that, like, I mean, we had something great, and the dynamic and the chemistry, it's just not something you come up with here and there. And they let all these mosquitoes suck the blood out of their goals. and they didn't even have goals in the first place. So it was one of those things where, like, I saw the vision, I saw where it could all go and everything, but they just didn't want to invest any of that real energy into making it what it could be or see the value in it long term. And that's the difference between them and you. You actually see and understand, and there's some things you don't see, and there's some things I don't see that we each point out to each other, which is one of the reasons why it's good that we have that dynamic. All right.
Right.
But along with that, we have our blind spots, and I think we complement each other in that way. But also, we both see the same thing, which is a much longer, bigger vision of where this could be, where we're not working for some company. We are running a company, and we are nerdpreneurs being nerdpreneurs.
We're living it.
We actually have that ability to find and make money, and survive and thrive, ideally, from something that we love doing and are very good at and feeds a passion and all those other things. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. You too.
Keep it nerdy, everyone. Thank you for listening, and I hope you still are. If you enjoyed that and you'd like to get more behind the scenes with Frank and I, and maybe some of these more raw and real conversations, consider joining our
Awesome Nerdpreneur Board.
Board members get a lot of behind the scenes action and some extended episodes that we record. We even record our staff meetings if you want to see those. Frank and I have some goals for where the podcast is going and how much we want it to grow. So go check those out on patreon.com/nerdpreneur. As always, we appreciate everybody who's listening. Please tell your friends, leave a review, and keep it nerdy.